Flex your business with an American Express Business Gold Card. You'll earn 4 times membership rewards points on your top 2 eligible spending categories, like transit and electronics, each month, on up to $150K in combined purchases per year. Plus, you can now earn 3 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Terms and points cap apply. Learn more at AmericanExpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold, built for business by American Express.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
Of course, we've got Geraldine McEwen as the evil nun at the kind of top of the tree.
Okay.
I mean, I would say any scene where she's cutting hair is impactful and horrible in this film. And yeah, I mean, as she's most famous for playing Miss Marple on TV, and she's completely different here.
She's horrible, isn't she?
Yeah, she's evil.
Terrifying.
It's 57 of Flixwatcher podcast. Today we are joined by Eleanor.
Hi.
And Liam.
Hello.
And always Helen.
Hello.
And we're going to be reviewing the Magdalene Sisters.
We are, of course, on iTunes, where you can subscribe and leave us a lovely review. You can also find us on Twitter at FlixWatcherPod. Come say hi, give us a tweet, and visit the website flixwatcher.tv for full listings of each episode.
So guys, just as a big reminder, all films on the podcast were available on Netflix at the time of recording. There will be bad language, there will be spoilers. I hope you enjoy it. See you later.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Flixwatcher podcast. Today our guests are Eleanor and Liam. If you would like to say hello and tell our lovely listeners a little bit about the podcast that you do.
Hi, so my name's Eleanor and I do a podcast called Bygones Podcast. And it's an Ally McBeal rewatch podcast where we take each episode, an episode of Ally McBeal, and watch it through 2018 eyes, because things have changed in a surprising way. And yeah, that's our podcast.
How many episodes of Ally McBeal are there?
Oh God, I'm not sure actually. I think there's 5 seasons, and I think there's about 20-something episodes.
Yeah, it sounds like this is ER territory.
ER's more. ER is 15 seasons of anywhere between 24 and 20, I think.
I thought we were going to say like anywhere between 24 and like 4.
I think it's about 100 episodes for Ally McBeal. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you'd know better than
So you are committed to 100 episodes?
Yes, we are. Through the rough and the smooth.
I was never really an Ally McBeal fan, were you?
I watched, I guess we'll talk about this a bit more, but I watched the first maybe 6 or 7 episodes. Quite enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But it was that time when a 20-episode season was fine.
Yeah.
Now there's no way I could handle a 20-episode season of one particular show.
It's a lot. Yeah.
But you only have to watch an episode every 2 weeks if you're watching along with you guys. So
yes,
it's fine.
That is true. It's fortnightly, so it's not too much.
And what about yourself, good sir?
I do a podcast called Spocklight. So that's like Spotlight, but with Spock from Star Trek instead of Spot. Basically, the idea is...
I've described that a few times.
Basically, the idea is we view Star Trek from a non-Trekkie perspective. Obviously, Star Trek is something we're a very hardcore fan base, and we thought it would be interesting being that me and my co-hosts, Matt and Paul, none of us were massive Trekkies before we started the podcast, to view something like that from kind of outsider perspective, give a kind of fresh kind of view on it, especially with the new series Star Trek Discovery.
Yep.
Obviously bring lots of new fans onto it, probably. Also available on Netflix, obviously. And yeah, we've been going for about a year and a half now. We're kind of first started with the movies. Now we're having a look at the TV series. We started to interview some people from the world of Star Trek on there. So with the producer of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, Robert Sallin, on the podcast and stuff. And yeah, that's what we've been doing.
Fantastic. And you're not doing episode by episode when it comes to the series, are you?
Fuck no. So, like, I mean, that would, I mean, Ali McBeal's got about 100. I think we actually had a bit in a recent episode where we said how many hours of television all of Star Trek take up. I think you spend something like 7 solid weeks of your life watching Star Trek or something like that. So no, not episode. But at the moment, what we're doing is a thing where we get someone on who's a big fan of one of the individual series of Star Trek to kind of pick an episode for us to watch and tell us why we should watch that whole season, because each like of the different series has about 7 seasons, so there's a lot.
It just became like unwieldy for me. I was a Next Generation watcher, but then I died out when it came to Deep Space Nine. Or
have you become a Trekkie now by osmosis a little bit?
I would say a little bit. I mean, it's one of those things where I kind of feel like to become full Trekkie, you have to have seen like all of the series at least, or something like that. And but I definitely like it a lot more than I did going in now, and I've definitely got much more of an interest in exploring more. Like I actually really enjoy watching more and more of it now and learning more about the show. I've become invested, certainly.
Are you a Trekkie or Trekker, Helen?
I mean, I like you. I used to watch Next Generation, and I've watched quite a few of the films when I was younger and quite enjoyed the reboots. But I'm not a Trekkie. No, I don't.
Does it seem a bit
dress up?
Unwieldy, like too much to have a bite at?
Now, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of back catalogue, but I don't. Maybe the new series, I might be tempted to have a dip in.
Well, if you feel the same way and you listen at home, we're the perfect way to get you started. So there you go.
So we're talking about the Magdalene Sisters, and Eleanor, you chose this film.
I did,
Can
yes.
you tell us what happens in it and why you chose it?
Yeah, so
please tell us why you chose it.
So the synopsis, basically, the Magdalene Sisters, the film is set in Ireland in the 1960s, and I think in the first 5 minutes it's very quickly done. Like we meet 3 young, I think they're teenagers, they're certainly not adults yet, and 3 young girls. The first is Margaret, played by Anne-Marie Duff. She gets raped by her cousin at a wedding, and she tells someone, who tells her father, who tells a priest, and the very next day she is packed off to a Magdalene laundry. And then we meet Bernadette, played by Nora Jane Noon, and she's an orphan, and we see like a member of staff sort of see her in a playground, sort of flirting with the local boys in this playground, and then the very next day she's gone out of the orphanage into a Magdalene laundry. And then we meet Rose, who has clearly had a baby out of wedlock, and her parents and a priest force her to put this baby up to adoption, and then she's packed off to a Magdalene laundry. And basically we follow these 3 girls who all arrive at the same laundry on the same day, and the terrible abuse that they all suffer in this laundry. And yeah, the Magdalene laundries were basically just this institution. I think it was pretty much like pretty exclusively a Catholic institution that was for fallen women, like i.e. sort of sexually promiscuous women.
Or potentially sexually, sorry, I'm cutting into your time.
Yeah, no, you're right. Like just anyone who just was not being a good Catholic girl just got sort of outcast and sent to these places by their families and caregivers. And yeah, that's the synopsis of the film.
So why did you choose it for us? All the listeners?
I chose it because it's basically a really important film, I think. Like I saw this film on the off chance when I was just randomly watching TV with my mum one day. I think I would have been about 18 at the time.
Yikes.
And we both got just hooked into this film and were gripped by it and were in bits by the end. And I'd never heard of a Magdalene laundry before that time. Like I think I knew that there was obvious sort of dodgy goings on in the Catholic Church, but I didn't know just how bad and just how systemic it was until I sort of saw this film.
Yeah.
And it was just, I just think it's an important film because I think the Catholic Church would love to sweep all of this under the carpet and that we never mention it again. And I think these films are really important. I mean, Peter Mullan, who directed it, said the reason that he did it was because basically he felt the victims of these laundries had received no closure, no compensation, no acknowledgement that it had happened and that it was wrong. And it was basically through, I feel it's through films like this that refuse to sort of shut up about this stuff that you get things like, a state apology from the Irish government was only given in 2013. Like, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's just insanity to me. And I just think these films are important for that reason.
So how many have you guys watched this before, Helen?
I've watched it before. Yeah.
Were you looking forward to the rewatch when Eleanor?
I mean, I think we'll talk more about this later in terms of rewatchability. But I mean, it is a hard going film. So I mean, I genuinely say it's one of the most like punishing films like I've ever watched. It's pretty relentless.
Helen,
I've seen it before, and I think maybe I'd blocked out how grim it is because, I mean, any film that opens with a rape is never really going to be. Yeah, it's not. It's not promising.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, it is a really important film. And something so recent as well. The last laundry actually only closed in 1996.
I know, they say that.
Which is like film, astonishing.
It's shocking when that, because that's the thing, it's all set in the 60s, but because it's in Ireland, everything looks like it's the 40s. Like, it's just slightly behind the times. And just
apologies to our Irish listeners.
I do think Ireland is better now than it was.
I'm Irish, so it's fine. Like,
but it's that thing of like, I think, you watch it and you're like, oh my God, how could this have happened? And
this is horrible history.
Recently, and
then, it's only a few years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Like 96, the last one closed in 96.
So how, I don't know how true to life these activities as portrayed in the film are.
Well, they're obviously at the end of the film, you sort of get an update to the main characters. So these are based on real stories.
Is that verified by IMDb or Wikipedia?
Well, I don't know. I think they are inspired by
I don't think they all were particularly at the same one at the same time, but they were all individuals.
So they were
specific
stories. People.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And I mean, actually, sorry.
Yeah, like an inmate had been an inmate at one of the Magdalene laundries actually turned around to Peter Mullan and said what was depicted in the film, like, it was far worse than that, which is horrifying.
It's Ireland's ongoing treatment of women and their bodies and sexuality and abortion kind of still continues.
Yeah. I mean, there's kind of two sides of the coin where this kind of film aligns itself with. One is the kind of the Catholic Church not being a very good place to hang out if you're in it.
Anyone. Yeah. unless you're a priest or a nun in power.
Yeah. Oh, so,
and even then, if you're a priest or a nun, you don't have it that well. So basically, let's just say Catholic Church.
And then there's the kind of films where there's institutions rain down on you. So on the institution side, you've got like Scum, which is not a fun film to watch. And the Catholic side, I guess you've got documentaries like Maximum Mea Culpa, Sleepers is
all those fun films.
Yeah. And most recently Spotlight, highlighting what happened in...
Not about your podcast.
Yeah. No, it's not the dramatization of the recording of our podcast. Funny enough, I almost chose Spotlight, but then we thought it might be a double bill of like Catholic injustice.
So yeah, is that, I mean, Catholic films and these kind of films, how how.
I mean, it's not great publicity for it, really.
No, it's not. Have you seen Maximum Mea Culpa and?
No, I haven't. I've seen Spotlight, and I've seen another film. This reminded me of was like Philomena. Did you ever see
I've never
that?
seen. I've not seen that
I've
yet.
not seen that yet.
That was
Someone pick it. It is on.
Yeah.
Pick
Is it
it.
still on
Someone.
Netflix?
Yeah.
It-
Future guest,
it's
please
a
pick
good
it for us.
film.
You can watch it outside of the podcast.
Oh no, but then I have to watch it again.
It's about a similar thing, isn't it? But
Yeah.
I'd say Philomena is
I'd say
more
it's a
palatable.
lot more hopeful and
Yeah.
a lot more. It definitely has.
Is that Judi Dench,
lighthearted-
is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Judi Dench
Steve
and
Coogan.
Steve
Yeah.
Coogan.
So
yeah.
those two alone would make it seem more palatable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
Well, it's not really because are there flashbacks in that or
Yeah,
I can't
I
remember,
think
but it's
there
not
is, yeah.
anything
Is that-
on part of this.
Is that on the females? Because those other films I've talked about tend to be on the priest abuse of men.
I think that's more of American Catholic
also,
Church,
Sing,
isn't it?
Sing Street had a bit of Catholic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's got a bit of Catholic abuse in it, hasn't it? Little bit,
Little bit of
thrown
Catholic
in.
abuse.
So that's more Mexican, more
Well,
American.
Sleepers and Spotlight are all American, aren't they?
Yeah,
So
but
over
just-
here
in
it tends to be
Sleepers, the whole thing in Sleepers, it's not. It's the prison guards, isn't it, doing it? Not the priest.
oh,
The priest, the good guy.
so
in
Sleepers is on the scum side, not the Catholic side.
Yeah, it's like they're going to like
Just institutional
an
abuse as
institution
opposed to
because I think
Catholic
the
institutional
only
abuse.
priest in it is Robert De Niro. I think he's a good guy in it,
Okay.
rather than that. So,
So maybe that's what I'm
standing up
getting
for
wrong.
the priests. they're great.
Standing up for the Catholics.
But yeah, you mentioned the opening with a rape, and it is a vicious rape as well,
Oh,
isn't it? I
it's
mean,
horrible.
literally when he just comes back in, slams that door in her face
'Cause
straight
at first
away.
you
It's
think
really
she's
visceral.
getting away from him. Like you
Yes.
think she's shamed him enough to walk away because she goes like, "What would your father say?" Because he's her cousin.
He does just seem to wander off and then goes outside, and then obviously something snaps inside of him. He goes, "No, that's it. I'm not taking no for
and
an
it's
answer." Comes back in.
horrible.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
Really nasty. I mean, that whole entire opening is like genuinely watch it.
How the three stories link together. How the three main ladies link together.
More talking about Anne-Marie Duff's kind of flashback
Okay.
in the sense of the way that is filmed, in the sense of we're totally with her in that scene. She's gradually just watching as all these men kind of play Chinese whispers with each other, kind of like, and you can tell that they're just gradually deciding
'cause
she's to blame.
Yeah.
And they're looking at her with real hatred in their eyes. And you really feel with her, and your heart's sinking because you're like, oh God, what's happening here?
Because you're not
Like,
hearing anything
No.
that anyone's saying. You're
It's well played out intro, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, this is Peter Mullan's directed a few films, all
Yeah.
of them a joy, as you can imagine, the joyful man that he is. And I mean, it's really well handled in terms of the direction, and that scene is one of the standout ones.
Yeah. Because I didn't read it that way. The first I was thinking, oh right, this guy's going to get his comeback. In a way, I was like, that's not a good start. And obviously, because I knew nothing about the film, I thought the
Yeah.
Magdalene Sisters would be her sisters.
Right.
Actually, she was Bernadette. Is it Bernadette her character?
No,
no,
that's the other.
Anne-Marie Duff is Margaret.
So I
Margaret.
thought it was Margaret Madeline, and we'd find out more about her sisters.
Do you think it was the Irish version of Sister to Travelling Pants?
That's a film I will never watch, so I couldn't tell you that. Yeah, so it was a fantastic opening scene, because when you I misconstrued it, but the fact you couldn't hear the dialogue going through and the music was still kind of playing out, you kept on flashing back to Anne-Marie Duff, kept on flashing back to her cousin. It is quite harrowing now. I look back at it in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, yeah, especially as you say, if you already know what's coming, it's
heartbreaking.
It's horrible. And yeah, you were saying about Peter Mullan. Obviously, yeah, he's directed all of the films. I think he's directed are pretty reasonably intense.
Ned's and Orphans.
I've
which
seen
I only two.
Orphans. Have you seen Orphans?
I haven't, no, but I can kind of imagine.
Yeah, it's a really good film. I'd say it is intense, but not as horribly harsh as this. I haven't seen Ned's. but I'd like to. But Orphans is also very good.
Has anyone seen Sunshine on Leith?
Yes.
That's like one light.
I'm just looking for a joy. I know he didn't direct it, it's Dexter Fletcher, but I think every film I can think of him being involved in is not, apart from Sunshine
Peter,
on Leith.
Mr. Tyrannosaur Mullan.
Yeah, Tyrannosaur.
He's a Death Eater in a few Harry Potter
Is he?
films. Like, so there's that.
I mean, it's funny. I was actually looking up all the films Mullan's been in earlier, and I saw Sunshine on Leith, and I was just like, oh yeah, that's a real anomaly in his CV. Like, a nicer film.
You have to know the album Sunshine on Leith to enjoy the film, because that's the reason I haven't watched it yet, because I just don't know
Because
the
you
album.
can't stand the Proclaimers.
No, I like the Proclaimers.
Okay. Well, you should watch it then.
No, but I don't know the rest of the album. I just know 500 Miles and Letter to America.
I went into it and only knowing like a couple of songs, and it was fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because one of those things, if you want to enjoy it, if you like Mamma Mia, you want to sing along to some ABBA songs.
You're not going to enjoy it anyway.
Mamma
so
Mia 2 is coming out. You're not. No. Holy shit!
Is that on Netflix?
I don't know. I think it was at some point. But anyway, we digress. You mentioned Tyrannosaur, Helen, and this is I mean, alluding to my rewatchability score, and this is something we've touched upon a few times in terms of films that you really like and they're great, but realistically, what kind of frame of mind do you want to be in to watch it again? And
Yes,
Tyrannosaur has been one that's been touted as great film, but rewatchability factor is low. So how many times you watch this?
Magdalene Sisters.
Yeah.
I reckon about 5-6 times.
Crikey.
I am just one of those weirdos that if I like something, I will rewatch it.
Okay.
I will I've plenty of harrowing films. So like The Changeling, like I've watched plenty of like a few times, and yeah, if I really like something, I will rewatch.
Jump back in there.
Even if it does leave me sad.
Has everyone seen Tyrannosaur here?
Yes, yeah.
How many times have you seen it?
I've only seen that the
Once.
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 Is that you didn't like it that much, Helen?
Oh no, I did like it. I think it's just
too grim.
Yeah, I think it was just a bit too much for me. I don't know.
I love Tyrannosaur. I think it's great. But I've got to be honest. I don't really rewatch films loads anyway.
Okay.
Because I just always think there's always so much else to watch. I think it's quite rare me rewatching films anyway.
The streaming Spotify problem, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's just I'm just kind of ravenously want to consume new films. So just always find my kind of putting rewatches to the back burner.
Yeah, it's quite weird actually. In Tyrannosaur, Peter Mullan starts off as the clear bad person in that film, but he turns out to be not the worst one.
No.
So there is some kind of happy edge, silver lining to his character arc in that film.
Yeah.
Starts off kicking a dog to death.
Paddy, I mean, me and Paddy are from the same place, so I don't.
Are you?
Yeah, he must have been from a slightly dodgier area.
As we
Good friends.
As we talk about this, his latest film, The Journeyman.
That's it. Yeah, that's meant to be a barrel of laughs as well.
I really enjoyed that, and we talked about crying in movies, and that's one that just had me distraught. One particular scene in that film. So
I'm really looking forward to that movie.
What
Very
film's
good.
that?
Journeyman. Paddy
It's
Considine's.
Paddy Considine's new film. that he's
Yeah, I
directed.
think I've heard. Yeah.
Where he's a boxer. I think I
Yes.
showed you a trailer.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, Mullan, of course, has a little cameo in this.
Yeah, he's probably
He's
one
lovely in that, isn't he?
He's a barrel of laughs. When he turns
I mean,
up.
that is a heartbreaking scene.
Yeah.
Like, he
Explain what
plays,
happens.
Well, he plays basically Anne-Marie Duff's character, Margaret, is she's only just recently been thrown in there, and she's planning to escape. You can see she's in her sort of day clothes underneath the bed sheets at night, and she's about to creep towards the door to leave, and suddenly she hears screaming and shouting and yelling, and she runs back into her bed, throws the duvet back over herself, and in comes Peter Mullan dragging this poor girl by the hair.
Who had previously escaped.
Who was an inmate at the laundry, who has escaped, run back home, only for her father, played by Peter Mullan, to literally drag her back, kicking and screaming and saying, "You have no mother, you have no father, like, you killed it, you're a whore, you're a slut, you're all whores, you're all sluts," and storms out. And it is heartbreaking. And it's that bit at the end where everyone's gone and Una's the girl that's been dragged back, and she's getting into her night clothes, and she's been beaten, hasn't she? She's got like blood and bruises over her face, and Margaret just gets back up and changes into her night clothes, and it's like, holy crap, like, she's realised this is what awaits her if she escapes, is being beaten and taken back. Like, so
it's really impactful scene. I mean, Mullen's clearly given himself a little Plum cameo there because he knows it's going to be a memorable scene at the end of the day. Because I mean, he just gets to run in basically and kind of like scream and shout for a bit. Like, yeah, and he's
very good at it.
Yeah, he is. He is very good at it.
And any scenes, Helen, that stick out from you apart from?
I mean, the one scene which again is really well directed and just really, really horrible is where the nuns are basically playing games with the girls while they've just sort of come out the shower.
Yeah.
And who's got the biggest breast, who's the hairiest, and it's really horrific, but it's so well directed, and just, I mean, all of the acting in it is fantastic. There's not one person in it who's adored. I mean, the sort of 4 lead females, adding Crispina into the mix in it, are fantastic.
Who have they, apart from Anne-Marie Duff, have the others done anything of note?
Nora Jane Noons was in The Descent. She did a few more other films as well, but outside of that, nothing particularly huge from anyone else.
I thought Anne-Marie Duff was from Manchester. Is she from Manchester, or is she?
Yeah,
I think so.
I think so, but that might just be because of Shameless.
Yeah.
I'm thinking
Fiona
of instantly.
Yeah.
But Nora Jane Noon, the one who plays Bernadette, this was her acting debut. This film, which is pretty amazing because that's a really great performance she puts in that movie. And of course, we've got Geraldine McEwen as the evil nun at the kind of top of the tree.
Okay.
I mean, I would say any scene where she's cutting hair is impactful and horrible in this film. And yeah, I mean, as she's most famous for playing Miss Marple on TV, and she's completely different here.
She's horrible, isn't she?
Yeah, she's evil,
terrifying.
Completely evil.
I mean,
No, I've never watched Miss Marple. I don't know if she's a goodie or a baddie.
She's just like this mild-mannered detective, isn't
yeah,
she?
she's
I mean, I never watched
it's an Agatha Christie
Yeah.
thing.
Just this old lady
little old
detective.
lady investigates murders.
Is she the UK version of Jessica Fletcher?
Oh, is that
Murder,
She
She
Wrote?
Wrote.
Yeah,
I think so.
it's
Yeah.
the equivalent of
Yeah.
that, yeah.
It's Sunday afternoon TV, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes,
Smart.
yeah.
Very much so. Very, very cuddly and comfy, which this is not.
Yeah.
I think let's continue the chat in the scoring section, guys.
So these are our wonderful Flixwatcher scores and the spreadsheet of dreams. So they're all out of 5. If you feel the need to have a 0, you can have a 0, and you can have a decimal place.
You can have
if you
decimal
wish.
places.
Okay, yeah.
And the first one up is the recommendability. So how likely you are to recommend. And as it's your choice, Eleanor, we'll start with you.
So I would put this at a 5 just because I feel that it's an important film. Like, I think it's something that people need to watch. It's just one of those films where it's like, don't forget what happened here.
Yeah.
Like, don't, because otherwise if this stuff doesn't get made, I just feel like
Get swept
we
under.
risk
Yeah.
collectively forgetting what happened. And I think that would be like a huge disservice to the people that lived through it or didn't.
Liam.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you say there. I mean, I'd give it a 5 as well because much as it is hard going. I mean, obviously, if you go recommend it to someone, the first thing to say would be, do you want to watch a scene where a woman screams, "You're not a man of God" 24 times? Yes, then this is the film for you. But it's that thing whether it's going to be a happy experience watching it or not. I don't think it matters. I think it's one of those things where, I mean, this is really like Ireland's great shame at the end of the day. And I think it needs to be seen just like films like Spotlight and stuff, so people can acknowledge what happened and be aware of it. Because, I mean, you know, like you said, Kobi, you weren't before you went into this film, this actually happened. And so I think that just demonstrates.
Yeah. And I am a well-read person, so... Helen.
I'm going to carry on the fives and also give it a 5. I mean, I've seen this before, and I think until you'd mentioned it that we were watching it again, I'd kind of forgotten about it and forgotten, obviously, that it was true and that it only recently ended. And I just think it is a really, really important film about women in Ireland and the history that people, you know, you need to watch and you need to be aware of these things. And I think by watching it, you're kind of acknowledging all those women who did suffer and giving them a bit of closure. I'm
going to go for 4.58 on this.
Oh, wow, that's specific.
Is that for the 0.2 person who you're not going to recommend it to, like the under 5s? And
I think I'll just there will be people, when I recommend this to people, there will be massive caveats to people. And the fact I'll have to explain the caveats has to detract from the recommendability score.
Okay.
For me.
Fair enough.
It's a tough watch. I think we'll talk a bit more about my thoughts in the repeat viewing score, which I think is apt for you to go into, Eleanor.
Okay, so rewatchability, I've put 3 because I kind of felt like I can't give it a low score because I myself have rewatched it so many times.
I think if you've watched it that many times, then it has to be.
Has to be more than 0.
Exactly. Yeah. However, I completely appreciate that plenty. In fact, probably most people would watch this and be like, "Watched it once. That's enough." And I feel like that is a perfectly fair reaction to have. Yeah. So I would put it at a 3.
Liam?
I think I'd probably go a 2.5 because I've now seen it multiple times as well. Not as many as Emma, but I think I've seen it 2 or 3 times. But it isn't a nice experience. Having watched it again for this podcast, I was thinking to myself, this is a great film. I don't think I'm going to be putting myself through it again anytime soon. But I have watched it multiple times. So, you know, obviously there is some rewatch value there. But you are essentially watching 2 hours of horrific pain and humiliation. So, yeah, I'd say settle on a 2.5.
Helen?
Excuse me. Yeah, I'm going to give it a 2 because I have seen it more than once now, and it was kind of good that I did watch it again because there's some bits that I hadn't quite remembered. I think I'd probably blocked it out of my mind a little bit.
Was there anything that had to be dragged out from the annals of your brain?
Well, I couldn't remember how it opened, so seeing the opening rating again was a bit like, oh shit, yeah, this is how
it starts.
How it is. And I could kind of remember loose bits of the story put together, but I think it was also the kind of relationships that they form between them are quite, so there's some slightly lovelier moments in with some of the horror, so I'd obviously just remembered kind of the plot and that it's, you know, pretty it's a pretty sort of depressing watch.
I'm gonna go for 1 here.
I mean,
I don't judge you for that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably, it's unlikely that I would need to watch it again. I mean, I last watched it in 2002 when it came out, so
I think it's a great film. It's a really good film, well made. I just think I have a big list of films I should rewatch again. Well, I should, quote unquote. 12 Years a Slave, Tyrannosaur. Yeah, just on that list. No,
I think some films are not really made to be watched multiple times.
Well, I think this one I watched Sleepers. I've only seen it once, but a friend gave it to me on VHS. Is that old? And I thought, this is a waste of plastic. I'm not going to watch it again. although at least you can share it to other people and say, what's this? And then never watch it again. But it's one of those kind of films. Have you got any films that you think you just know the subject matter and you find it hard even to watch it for the first time? Because I'm thinking like Hunger's on Netflix, and
I've seen that,
but I've not seen it, and I'm thinking I'm not sure when I'd watch that.
Not when you're hungry.
Is that worse or better? I don't know, worse or better. Torment.
I mean,
Hunger is hard going, but they've now got on Netflix Bobby Sands 66 Days, which is the documentary version.
That's
so
based on this,
do a double bill.
yeah, exactly. What a night.
It'd be interesting. I would actually quite like to see a documentary version of this and actually find out what happened.
Well, there is a documentary, like, because this was actually...
Is it on Netflix?
I don't know, but
It's Dead to Us, Helen, if it's not Netflix.
This was inspired by a documentary. I think it's called Sex in a Cold Climate.
Right.
I think it was done in 1993.
Sounds like a horrible title.
Yeah.
And I think Peter Mullan must have seen this documentary and been like, gotta make a film about this, and did.
It's what the Peter Mullan character, obviously, I don't know if he's typical of all the parents, but he seemed so gleefully happy to throw Noonan back into...
All these women were put there by someone, whether it was their families or the orphanages or...
I can kind of understand the orphanages a bit,
but
the family, the mothers and the fathers.
This is what they were told, that if that behaviour's going to get them sent to, they need to go to the church to be sorted out. We'll sort them out
because they're going to go to hell otherwise.
Yeah.
And I think it was one of those things where like you just listened to a priest. If a priest told you to do something, you did it. And also, I believe it's interesting because when you look at the history of the Magdalene laundries, they were initially set up to help fallen women, and they could go in and out as they chose.
Right.
So it was kind of like a place you went when you were destitute and
like a women's shelter
help.
almost.
Yeah, exactly. But it eventually warped into this place where you were put in there by other people, and you could only leave if the nuns felt you had paid your penance and cleaned your soul enough to go.
and done enough laundry.
Rarely happened because free labour, why would you let that go? Or a male member of your family came to pick you up.
Which is what happened to
Margaret. Yeah. Like, so your mother could not go in and get you. And if you didn't have any other male members of your family,
and people thought they were getting paid, didn't they? They were paying money into these laundries to have their clothes washed, gave the money, and they were like, well, they must be paying the women.
Yeah,
which is interesting again because initially, once upon a time when these laundries were set up, there were some that did pay these women.
Okay,
but again, it just warped into something like a prison for people that had not committed any crime.
Well, like you say, it's basically you're never getting out, are you? Because there's a woman who's been in there for 40 years, isn't there? Who's like gone completely mad.
Yeah,
going,
complete Stockholm syndrome.
She's become a complete snitch to the kind of like nuns and everything like that because she's just. I think she actually dies while she's in there, doesn't she?
Yeah, she does. Katie.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that kind of is this real shock to the system to the younger girls of like, oh, we ain't never getting out unless we take this into our own hands.
Yeah. Let's move on to the small screen score. Eleanor.
Okay, so I've put a 4 because I kind of feel like it does work on a small screen. Like I don't feel like you're necessarily missing out on anything by not seeing it at the cinema. So yeah, I think it works pretty well on a small screen.
I'm gonna go with a 4 as well. I mean, I think it's reasonably kind of lo-fi in its visual stylings. However, the reason I wouldn't give it a 5 is because I simply think that if you saw this in the cinema, which I assume you did, Helen, back in the day, I can only imagine that in a darkened room when you're on your own, it would add an extra level of horrible claustrophobia and kind of make the unrelating harshness even more horrible than if you're watching it at home. And I kind of think in this regard, actually, that's why it was made for cinema, maybe rather than TV.
Helen.
Well, as someone who has seen it in the cinema and at home, I can say that, I'm going to give it a 5 because it came out in 2002 and I don't think particularly many people saw it then. It wasn't on a massive release, I don't think. So the fact now
I'd be
that it's
surprised if it was, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it did come to the Aberystwyth Art Cinema. There we go. It was there. That's where I saw it. So I think that it's on Netflix for people to watch and continue to get this story out there. I mean, there's nothing cinematic about it that needs to be seen on a big screen or anything. But, you know, it's there. It's a really important film. So if you're still listening, definitely watch it if you haven't seen it.
I'm going to go with the Spocklight Bygones people with a 4. So I think that's. I was going to go high. I was going to go for a 5, but I think what you're talking about there in terms of, and I guess it probably ties in with the engagement score bit as well. The overwhelming oppression of sometimes being in a cinema and watching a film like this, because I saw Tyrannosaur in a cinema, I saw 12 Years a Slave in a cinema, and those are both kind of films where I was just at the end. I'm not sure if I was the last person to leave, but I was one of the people just kind of going, well, that's that then. That's my. But I think that's one of the things about Netflix and the engagement score, watching things on TV, you can quite quickly detach yourself from it and just leave the room and not forget about it, but.
Well, I think it means you can, like, if it's getting a bit too much, you just want to stop and have a cup of tea, you can pause it, go make yourself a cup of tea and come back. And so you're not, like, just kept in this state of looking at the abuse that these women are facing day after day.
We need to ask Jen and Dave, who have been on for the Family Tree podcast and Getting Better Acquainted. They have the thing where halfway through a film,
ratings for tea, don't they?
Yeah, they stop halfway through a film and make a cup of tea, irrespective. So,
and if they don't have a cup of tea, then it's been really engaging. There's not been a suitable moment to pause.
Let's go to the engagement score. Eleanor.
Yeah, so I gave it a 5 for engagement because mainly I think because of the way my mum reacted to this film when we first saw it together. Because my mum is one of those people who, especially, she doesn't get easily engaged in films, especially if it's on TV at home because there's so many distractions. But this film, like, hooked us immediately into it and did not let go until the very end, and that is so rare for my mum that I'm like, wow, if it can hook her in and keep her with the film all the way through to the end, like I think that's pretty impressive.
When you were watching this, you said at the top of the show that you watched it with your mum, and obviously it starts with a rape.
Yeah,
that's the kind of point where I kind of go, off to bed. I'll see you later. But you stuck with it.
Yeah, I guess I think I come from a family that has never really shied away. I mean, my mum's a midwife, so like we have all kinds of graphic conversations at the dinner table, and that is normal.
I mean, and also we're not 16 anymore, so it's a little bit different.
No, but you were 18 when you saw it.
I was about 18. Yeah.
Okay.
No, we just don't. Yeah, like it's all right. It's fine.
Liam.
Engagement. I'd go with a 5, definitely. I mean, I think it's hard to look away in a film like this. You know, apart from if you're kind of wanting to get away from it for a bit and you might pause. But I mean, for me, I think you're pretty glued to the screen because you can't help but kind of just not just look on and just see. It's so harsh. The film. It's so punishing, and it's because of that. It's very, very gripping, especially when it, you know, eventually it does turn into a sort of prison escape movie, and you know, and then that you're so desperate for them to get out, you know. So yeah, 5 all the way.
Oh, Helen.
So I mean, it's tricky because obviously I've seen it twice now, and it doesn't really offer much the second time round in terms of anything new. So I'm going to give the engagement score based on the first time I saw it. So I'm going to give it a 5. This film could easily have been a lot longer. I haven't actually made a note of the runtime, which is quite surprising for me. Yeah, I mean, it could have gone on longer. There could have been more stories. There could have been, you know, they could have picked out so much more. And as someone said to Peter Mullan, like, you didn't show the half of it really.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like that. And it is completely engaging because you really care what happens to these people, and you care about the ones that are left behind as well. And you really do, for those 2 hours, what is going to happen to them, what's going to happen next. And it is, and it forces you to watch as well. So even though you might sort of look away for some of the more horrific bits, you're just so engaged in what happens. I'm
going to go a bit lower than you guys at 4.5, I reckon.
Come on, Kobi.
I don't know what. There was some point. I think I found not preposterous. Some of it was like looking on in disbelief at what was kind of going on.
Okay.
And
in which bits?
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Like I didn't like when they did the escape bit when they were escaping and she was smashing down the door. She was like,
I love it.
Keeping the nun back into the room.
It.
When I say disbelief, I don't mean like I can't believe this is happening. It was more like it just took me out of the film a bit.
Yeah. Okay.
In a way, I don't know why. I just felt some points I was a bit disconnected from it, or maybe I wanted to be removed from it a bit. And like when Crispina was stood on the toilet before, then she went to like actually try and hang herself. I didn't. Those kind of bits took me out of it. I don't know why.
Oh, okay.
But I can't really explain. But there was just a feeling. But otherwise, I'm just like watching through my hands with gritted teeth at the things. And it's a 15, isn't it? So it's not in terms of violence and other things. It's not graphically that terrifying. It's just the oppression is hard. So I can understand why you guys have gone for 5s across the board there. But for me, it's 4.5. Which for us gives us a score of 4.03.
That's pretty high.
It's pretty good.
It's
considering the repeat viewing is so low to bring it out.
Impressive.
So yeah, cheers. Probably won't watch this again, like I say, but I think people are listening. If you're half interested, you should do whenever you get the opportunity. What kind of scene, what kind of setting would you recommend?
What, for watching this?
Yeah. Is it Sunday afternoon after your roast dinner?
No. See, Sunday, I think you need to have a chilled kind of film.
It's maybe like a Tuesday or a Wednesday, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's a fair.
You've got through Monday.
Yeah,
it's not
exactly.
quite Wednesday. It's not Thursday, and you're rolling into the weekend.
Do you think you need like to have had a hard
Bottle
day
of
at work
vodka
where
or
you want to
something?
get some vengeance, or do you think you need to?
When you need a good cry.
Okay. I'm not even sure it's that.
Good cathartic cry.
Date night.
Sorry?
Date night.
Yeah. I loved Matthew from Pappy's telling us that he went after he proposed to his wife in Paris. Then they went to watch Shame.
Oh my god!
that famous date movie.
Still going to marry me or? Okay. Yeah. So 4.03. Guys, thank you very much for bringing this to our attention. Can you let us know where we can find you online and Twitters and stuff like that?
Yeah, so you can find the Bygones podcast at Bygones Podcast on Twitter and Bygones Podcast on Facebook and at Bygones Pod on Instagram. And yeah, we're out every fortnight.
You can find Spocklight at Spocklight Pod on Twitter, Instagram, all the kind of social medias. Can't remember my own Twitter handle. It doesn't matter. Just listen to the podcast. That's all that matters.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. You can find all of the episodes on our website, flixwatcher.tv. Want to give us your 5-star review? Follow us at FlixWatcherPod on Twitter. Big shout out to our editor Brendan Russell for all his awesome editing skills, and thanks as always to the mighty people for their tunes.